Again to our writing crash course series, and this is our third installment, and this video we will be highlighting an informative letter. This question that you'll be seeing is taken from the HKDSE 2018 version paper 2 part A. Let's get on with the step-by-step guide. So please pause the video right now so you can read through the question. Okay, so once you have done that, if you saw the previous two crash course series videos, we mentioned that you should look for 4 things when it comes to a writing task: your role, your task, your audience, and your tone. So again, pause at any time so you can see what those 4 things are. But I would like to mention that in here, your tone has to be formal and informative because you are pretending to be a class teacher and you will be providing details of a trip to parents. So when you identify it, we think that it is best to write these 4 things down. Yes, it's repetitive, but it is so helpful because a lot of times when students write, they just write off of the top of their head, and that doesn't create an organized piece of writing. So take this little extra step, write down your role. And here, you're Chris Wong. Geez, this Chris Wong guy must be so famous and so old at this stage, right? So he's a class teacher of 6A. Your task is to write a letter to the parents of 6A, and you have to tell them about the details of the Sky 100, the audience, parents of 6A, and your tone. You have to sound formal, but you have to be welcoming. You have to be informative because you will be giving details of a school trip. And oh yeah, the question did point your attention to a mind map for a guide. And so now the next step is to figure out the structure. So with this mind map, you should think about this in terms of paragraphs. We feel that paragraph 1 should be about the purpose of the trip. It just makes a lot of sense to explain what this trip is about. Then talk a little bit about the details of Sky 100, transportation arrangements, maybe more about the meeting and dismissal time. So yeah, so that's the next paragraph. Paragraph 3 and 4 should be about lunch and the cost of the trip. And finally, a sentence regarding your contact details and a mention of a reply slip in your last paragraph. It's important in a mind map when you brainstorm like this, make sure you label which paragraph is first, second, third, and fourth. Again, having a sequence really helps you visualize what you need to write in an organized fashion. So now let's break it down a little bit more and brainstorm paragraph by paragraph with some language reminders. So in the first paragraph, state the purpose of the trip. Is it to learn more about Hong Kong cityscape, etc., Hong Kong history, or is it to relax after exams? So figure out what your purpose of the trip is. Language reminders, present tense and future tense. Present tense because you have to give details of Sky 100, but future tense because this is a field trip that is going to take place in the future. First person point of view always sounds friendlier, but include positive adjectives because it helps parents understand the purpose of the trip better and maybe agree with you that such a trip is beneficial as well. Okay? So the next paragraph, details, details, details. So pause the video just to check out what the details are. I'm not going to read through everything. I am going to tell you about the language reminders. Whenever we give information or whenever we give instructions, the passive voice is very helpful. Modal verbs, are very helpful. Should, must, are to. Just great grammar tools to be informative and instructional. So take note of that. Paragraph 3 and 4. Again, details regarding lunch and cost. Again, pause at any time so you can read. On top of the passive voice and the modal verbs, make sure you use conjunctions like and, or, because you're giving a lot of information. Transitional phrases like however, in addition, will help the reader organize their thoughts while they're reading. One of the biggest common mistakes our students make is to list information using commas. And so the problem with that is you have a long sentence with 50 million commas. This actually is very bad writing. It is a run-on sentence. And believe it or not, it makes it really confusing. So don't use commas in a way where you think you're just talking. It's different. Make sure your sentences are relatively short and have maybe 1 or 2 commas. So think about that when you write. Final paragraph, contact details, and a proper salutation. If you have any questions, it's a good if statement to use. Please contact. Proper salutation. We think using yours faithfully here is good because it shows utmost respect to parents, and maybe the class teacher hasn't met all the parents before, so it's a good sort of salutation to use. And so make sure to include your name and the title. So after doing all these things, it's time to write, but make sure you double check. So, hey, did you write in first person? Were you friendly, informative? In the body paragraphs, were you informative using grammar techniques, right? Passive voice, modal verbs. We also mentioned transitional phrases and conjunctions. Also, paragraph. Paragraph. Don't write everything in one big chunk. Not clear, not cool. And finally, your conclusion. Did you include contact details and a reply slip? And that salutation, that closing is very important. Always double check for spelling and punctuation and word limit. Make sure to reread your work. And so here is the student sample. We're not going to read through the whole sample right here, but we will highlight certain things that we liked. So first paragraph was the purpose of the trip. Really great technique here. I am writing to inform. So standard to give information in a letter like this. In fact, memorize it, okay? Another good technique is using the infinitive plus an object. Don't worry about that. Just think about it as a noun, a person, and then it's good for giving instructions. When you're trying to give a reason or purpose for something, this type of structure, perfect to use to facilitate student learning outside of the classrooms and broadening their scope of knowledge on the city they live in. So again, this type of structure is good to give reason, right? And we mentioned that adjectives should be used here, enriching and pleasant experience. It just makes the parents, right, who are reading this go, oh yeah, cool, this trip does sound cool. So that's the whole point with using positive adjectives to help support the purpose of the trip. Now, this person here provided details in 3 very distinct paragraphs. But what's most clear and impressive is the grammar tools. So first, when giving instructions using should, those are modal verbs. The class should arrive. Students should be responsible. That's where your modal verbs come in. Then the passive voice in present tense. So this should have been highlighted in orange, but Sky 100 observation deck is located on. Students are reminded to bring. Students are allowed. Parents are reminded. The reason why you use the passive voice is because the action of these things are more important than the person giving these instructions. So it doesn't make a lot of sense if you write the sentence like this. We want to remind the students, we want to tell the students they are allowed, even then that's a passive voice. But I hope you get what I mean, all right? You don't want to mention me, I too much. You're trying to emphasize the action a lot more. And these are great techniques in using grammar when you want to be informative. And finally, the last paragraph should be the inquiries paragraph. Another way you can write this is if you have any questions or concerns, please. Notice that the person here is super polite with the tone. Thank you, please. Very, very necessary when your audience are parents and you are a teacher. This is the go-to salutation here. Yours faithfully, went even overboard with the cool signature here. Chris Wong, class teacher of 6A. I got to be honest with you, in today's world, this is being used less and less. More and more people use kind regards because it's just more friendly. But exam purposes, stick to that. This person got a level 5, but there are certain areas of improvement that can be attained. So number 1, the student could have mentioned more activities inside the Sky 100. They just said, oh, okay, this is where it's located, but what are you actually going to do there? As a parent, it would be great if we knew what the children are doing inside Sky 100. And then finally, where's that reply slip? You got to be authentic as possible. 2 little details that we think could have gotten maybe a 5-star star. Definitely not, they didn't get that here, in my personal opinion, but good enough to get a 5, potentially 5-star. So that's it. This is a step-by-step guide on an informative letter. Hope you guys found this valuable and helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.